Do you struggle to figure out how to balance your accessibility, whether you're at home or at your work? You know, the challenge with that is that you're really trying to balance. Have you ever tried to do that? I was at the gym the other day, tried to balance. We were supposed to do like a deadlift. So our upper body went down, one leg went back, and we were supposed to balance. It is a hard thing to do if you've never tried it. Try to find balance. So rather than finding balance, maybe you could find harmony. We're going to talk about accessibility, finding harmony, and more on episode 880 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Tom, I'm trying to balance on one foot and do the do. That's a lot of work. Let me tell you, I'm all over the place here.
Try to lean forward while your leg leans backwards. Got to have a pretty solid core to do that. Not easy.
That's what they say about me, solid core Bob.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Bob, I think we need to do this.
Okay, let's do this. Are we going to sing harmony?
No.
Oh, I thought we were going to find harmony.
We are.
La, 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 la. What song would you like to sing?
In a moment. You could always sing a song. You ever heard of that song?
Sing a song.
It's a little old.
That is old.
But here's what I wanted to share.
Okay.
So we started right at 7.
Yes.
Typically, when we start right at 7, it is recorded.
Oh,
so
okay.
All your comments, thoughts, ideas, we can't share them in the show the way we typically do when we're live. Today, we are giving the disclaimer that even though we started at 7, we are live. And so please feel free to share your thoughts and ideas, because we will actually be able to share them today. I just thought people want to know that disclaimer. They might assume because we started right at 7 that it's recorded.
Good point. I didn't think about that. You're right. And the way we can prove it is I don't have a newspaper to hold up as proof of a date, but I can say there were some killer thunderstorms around 3 a.m. where I was. And anyone in the Baltimore, Washington area knows what I was talking about.
Oh, yes. It was quite the storm last night.
It was, yeah.
I don't think I've heard that much thunder and lightning in a while.
I don't usually hear the lightning. Not in a while and not at any point.
Fair enough. All right, everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast. Each week, Bob and I choose a topic, or like this week, our topic was chosen by one of our listeners, Missy, who said, you know what, I struggle with accessibility and I'm not really sure how to manage it. So we thought we would have that conversation. And today we're going to talk about finding harmony, different than trying to get balance. And as we go through that conversation, if you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, please feel free to put them in the comments. We'll make them a part of the show. And we know that it'll add value and have an impact on what we have to say. And at the conclusion of that conversation, Bob and I will each offer our one thing, our today's antidote. That's why it's the name of the show. That thing that we hope will help you if you feel like you're out of losing control, like things seems to be a little bit of chaos. You can't even imagine what balance could look like. We're going to help you find some confidence and control with hopefully that one thing. And of course, if you have a one thing you'd like to share, please feel free to share it as well. It might be the one thing that someone has been told over and over and over again. They just can't hear it. You might actually share it in a way that they can. And they will benefit from your value. So please feel free to share your value throughout the show. Before we dive into that conversation.
All right, hang on, Tom. Hold on. You said something that makes me think of something. I think when I start this, you'll know what you need to do. You started talking about chaos and confusion and how you can go from confidence to confidence and control. That's what we can do for you. So if you're having trouble with this, whether it's balance, harmony, accessibility, leadership, managing your time, managing people, managing your money, managing what your goals are, managing growth in your organization or company, we are there for you. For business owners and leaders, we want to help you with our Sculpture Business program. All you have to do is reach out to Tom or me, or you can go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. It's easy, it's quick, and it can change your life and your business's life. Don't delay.
Fair enough. Was that what I was supposed to do?
Yes.
For those of you on the podcast who have no idea what just happened, I just switched the screen. So it wasn't seeing Bob and I. It was actually seeing an image talking about our Sculpture Business program. So thank you, Bob, for sharing that information. And yes, we are happy to help you. So come be a part of our Renegade Success Network. So now, before we dive into our conversation, each morning, Bob and I share our celebrations. So, Bob, what are you celebrating today? I think I know.
No, you don't, actually. I joined a networking group a couple of months ago, and I've gotten to know some of the people. And yesterday, one of the people in the group sent me a note afterwards that said, I've been watching you. You're the real deal. You really are what I thought you were, and that's really something. And I want to refer you to a couple of people. And I know he'd been watching me. He was actually the one who brought me into the group, and we had talked a couple of times. He had seen me do some of my coaching in the group. He had heard about me. He had heard me give several presentations. And it was just nice to have that affirmation that someone recognized, I knew you'd like that word, that someone recognized that I was, really making a difference for people in that group, and that he had other people he thought I might be able to make a difference for. So the moral of the story is we're often being watched when we know it and when we don't know it by everyone around us. And you got to bring your A game as much as possible, because you never know when it might matter.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. How about you?
So, what I'm going to celebrate is I was talking with one of our Renegade Success Network members yesterday, and someone else in a coaching scenario. And it always intrigues me how when I start sharing thoughts and ideas with someone based on or asking questions of someone to help them overcome a challenge that they face, I find that so often they relate to things that I also could work on. And
we could do a whole week on that.
Yes.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, what's interesting about it, was interesting about it yesterday was it almost gave me the opportunity to try to answer some of those questions myself. So when I was talking with I remember he's dealing with this thing he was trying to figure out. And so I started asking questions. And while he was processing, I was processing as well and saying, this is something that might be helpful for me if I start trying to answer the questions internally, because they're sometimes hard to ask yourself when you're in the middle of it, right? If you're doing it and you're just by yourself and you're trying to figure something out and you can't, it's hard to do because it's a part of you and you're so into it. And so I thought, well, wow, if I start to listen to what I'm saying to somebody else and think about how I might respond, in some ways I'm coaching myself, which was a weird thought in and of itself. And it helped me find some value and some insight into some things that I could do differently around my business. So I'm celebrating that sort of discovery.
Wow. That was an action-packed session. Now, did you charge yourself for that session, or did you give it to yourself free?
I don't know. It's a good question. I haven't thought about that yet.
Okay. So Tom is sculpting his own business, it sounds like.
While I help someone else sculpt theirs.
That's right.
It's fascinating. Well, it was just interesting because usually I'm not in that mindset. I'm usually zoned in. And not that I wasn't zoned in on what they were doing. It was just like, these are questions I need to ask myself and try to come up with what are my answers to them as well. And, and just because it was not an easy task for this person, it gave me some time to do some processing as well. So,
can you tell us one of the questions you were trying to answer for yourself?
Can I tell you one of the questions I was trying? Yes. I think. Well, yeah, it was how do you prioritize those things? There was a step that needed to be taken. And then after that step, which kind of separated some things, then, which is the challenging piece, is how do you prioritize them? And how do you make sure that you're not making any one step too large or too inclusive, which makes it more difficult and more challenging to then accomplish what it is you're trying to accomplish.
I like that. That's good. Prioritizing is a big thing, isn't it?
It is the thing, I might say, honestly.
Whoa.
The more I talk and think about it, I think that's that when we fail to prioritize, it's easy to get stuck. When you prioritize, and if you stick to it, it can provide a lot of clarity.
Okay, I see your second book now.
Oh, I might be onto my third. I was thinking of another one today, last night.
Easy to think of them, harder to write them.
Yeah, although this first one, I think what might become the first one might be easier because I've been talking about it a lot this year, and so it is. It's something that has it's been formed a little more.
Yes.
In that type of a presentation setting.
Yep.
So anyhow, all right. Shall we dive in?
Yes.
Accessibility. All week we've been talking about it. Do you want to kick us off as we try to wrap it up and find some harmony there?
Sure. I think it's a constant give and take. I think there are days when there is harmony, and there are days when you're off key. And it's just a reality. I don't think that, I think we can strive, to use the word we were talking about the other day, we can strive for harmony in our accessibility, how much we're available to other people, and frankly, to ourselves. I was thinking about that last night, that we didn't really talk about accessibility to ourselves. Making time for ourselves and being very intentional about, I want to get up in the morning and journal. I want to get up in the morning and exercise. I want to get up in the morning and eat breakfast. And I'm not going to check my work email until I get my breakfast done or my exercising done. And I'm going to make sure I get to bed at a reasonable hour and get my 7 hours of sleep. And I'm going to make sure I leave the office at lunchtime, or at least get away from my desk. And that's part of accessibility, right? That's the other side of the coin, being accessible to ourselves. And I think so when we talk about harmony, that's really, to me, the harmony of being accessible to myself and what's important to me, and being accessible to the people I work with, or my customers, or vendors I work with, whoever it is, or friends, family, and balancing all those things. That's a tall order. That just doesn't magically appear. You don't figure it out on Tuesday and have it mastered for the rest of your life. You have it figured out for Tuesday, and I'm going to bet by Wednesday morning, there's a new variable, or there's a shift, or there's a change of some sort, and you're doing it all over again. And all the things you used to do it on Tuesday, you're kind of starting at square one. And I think that's what makes accessibility really difficult for us in the big picture. Now, in a more microscopic level, you have the concept that you can work with people around you, your family, your friends, your colleagues, and set some boundaries so that you can find the harmony. I worked in one office where they would have quiet hours from 1 to 3 p.m. You couldn't interact with other people. You couldn't talk. You had to be at your desk doing your job. It was technical editing. And so you needed quiet. And we just got in this place where it's like from 1 to 3, there's no talking. You're not going to ask questions. You are on your own. And that was part of the accessibility. We wanted to not have access for 2 hours and have it locked down. Now at 3 o'clock, there was all kinds of movement and activity, as you can imagine. But that was part of that accessibility to ourselves, because if you're constantly being bothered while you're trying to do this very intense editing work, you can't get as much done.
So it's interesting. The whole first part of that, all I could hear you saying was you were trying to balance it. I have to have breakfast before I check my work email. I have to, all of these things that we set upon ourselves as boundaries is really an attempt to balance. And I think there's a lot of value in boundaries, except when they become cement walls. And it's a little bit, and then you started talking about the thing in the office, and I'm like, well, what if I'm the person who that's not my focus time? After lunch, that was the worst time for me. That was the least effective time for me was 1 to 3. Because I was whatever. I felt like I was just not as focused. I was always looking for like what are those simple things that I could do that needed to be done and yet didn't take a lot of attention. And so it's almost like in order to find that balance, the company dictated, this is what we're going to do. And I'm sure people got used to it and it became more comfortable. Yeah, what about that person?
Well, we sat around the table, all 7 of us, and chose a time. So it wasn't from the company; it was from the actual group.
And yet, that still is trying to balance it, right? How does this work as a group?
Sure.
So it didn't allow for the what happens when. And there might have been some things that needed to be done at that time, yet you couldn't do it because you were establishing that this was a hard and fast rule and never to be broken. That to me is trying to find balance. It's not allowing for those things that are out of our control to then move forward into what happens next. So I mean, and I'm not bashing it, or I'm not trying to say that I think that that to me gets into that point of we're trying to control everything. It's all about control. And if we control everything, we're going to get the results that we desire. And I think that becomes the fallacy of it all, is that it's almost impossible to control everything. Actually, it is impossible to control everything. And in reality, we control very little. And so if we can start to say, this is our intent, knowing that there could be other things that come up. Like what had happened if there was an emergency change that needed to be made in the technical writing, and as the boss was like, can't break in, it's 1 to 3, I got to leave them alone.
Well, we had a fire drill one day. That was fun.
Yeah, what did people do? Did they get up and leave?
They got up and went outside, and then we came back, and then this only lasted about 2.5 weeks.
Interesting.
It just kind of, there wasn't a meeting to end it. It just sort of disappeared one day.
Because people found that things got in the way. Other things that they couldn't control happened.
There was, and I think the other reality was at 3:00, people were really it just, everything had bottled up. So by 3:00, there was a lot of releasing going on. One of our employees, I don't think you know him, but he actually at 3:00 did like a 5-minute comedy routine almost every day, just as a means of breaking the going from one.
Can I guess who it was?
Sure, I'll let you guess. Go ahead, Tom.
This is why you should not play poker. Just as you were about to tell that story, your hand ran through your hair, and I'm like, this is about Bob.
As if you didn't know that.
Well, I wasn't certain at the beginning. Could have been anybody. And then you gave some tips that sort of tipped me off that it wasn't about to be you.
Yeah, I don't play poker, so that's good.
It's probably a good thing.
Yes. So do you have your one thing?
Yes. You want me to start, or do you want to go ahead?
It's starting to rain, which I wasn't planning for.
Those things out of our control. Go ahead. Give yours.
That's it. So when we talk about our being accessible to other people, to ourselves, and to what we need to do and finding harmony, I think it's a moving target. Every day it's different. Every day it's new. And the more you figure it out, the less you figure it out. I don't think there's the ideal, and I don't think it's something that you ever can rest and say, I've got it down cold.
Okay. I agree with that. I think that, mine is a little like that, although I think it's different. I mean, I think that's the beauty to me of harmony, is that you can try to have a plan and yet understand that there's so many things out of your control that there's a good chance the plan is going to get interrupted. And if you are dead set on balance, you're going to struggle with that, because you're like, I have my plan, I'm trying to balance that with everything else that I have, and it's a struggle. If you can find harmony where, you know what, the plan is going along well, yeah, there's a break in it. Okay, that was a break, and that's okay. It's all right that something else took priority at this moment. And it's okay to go back and try to get back into it again. And that the ebb and flows of our boundaries are okay, because we can't control anything and everything around us. How could we ever have boundaries that are set in stone? And so when you try to do that, there is value in trying, and then there's understanding that you'll likely never achieve it. And if you're dead set on achieving it, you're going to get stuck. If you are comfortable with you're in a path trying to achieve it, and sometimes you get closer and sometimes you don't, and yet you're still constantly going back to try and achieve it, because there's this ebb and flow, this harmony in that you're going to, I think, find more confidence and more control than if you truly believed you had control over everything. That's my one.
I hate to accept that, but you're right. I need to think through that some more over the weekend. I think there's a powerful lesson for me somewhere in there, and I've got to take some time to listen to it, because frankly, one of the things I did not control real well in this setup is the amount of traffic noise and the fact that it's dripping on me.
Probably a good reason for you to get back inside your car.
That's right. That's
See,
why
here's the thing, right? Is you were dead set you're going to do this all outside. Because you even said to me, I could get in my car if the noise was too loud. Well, it wasn't the noise that was a potential issue. It was the weather. And had you maybe not set this boundary that I have to do this outside, it's just not the same in my car, you'd have been like, okay, I don't want to get wet. I'm going to get in my car. I understand I wanted to be outside to do this, and I feel like it's more effective. And sometimes that's not the plan.
Now you're just dragging this out to see how wet I get.
Well, there is that too as well. Anyhow, all right, let's move on. Everyone, thanks so much for being with us today. If you have a one thing you would like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments. And if you're listening to the podcast, we know there's no place to comment. So we encourage you to join us on Facebook in our Sculpt Your Business from Chaos and Confusion to Confidence and Control group, where you can share your value there. And while you're there, you might gain from the value that others have to share. So we look forward to seeing you inside of that group. If not, we will see you Monday morning, 7 a.m.-ish Eastern time, for our next episode of Today's Antidote.
Hey, whatever you do, folks, rain or shine, embrace the renegading you all weekend long. It's so worth it.
It is. All right, everyone, go out and enjoy your day, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you soon.
Hey, I already talked about this, so I don't know what else I could say except go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com and see all the details. You're going to want to get involved with our Sculpt Your Business program as soon as possible.